This coming weekend, in just a few short days, is our Somerville Open Studios event. And every year before Open Studios, I traumatize about how I'm going to display my work for the public. And normally I do it in my studio, but I barely fit in my studio, let alone visitors. And so I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to set up and how it's going to work best for everyone. So I'm setting up in an area in the building, a public area, a public hallway that looks vaguely like this. Come on, how does it vaguely look? This is, God damn it. Damn it. What's wrong? Here's an elevator door. Here's a hallway. And there's another part of the building here. So this is the area that I am going to take over. This wall, these two walls, maybe this wall, and this wall. It's not going to be an overly crowded event, so I don't have to worry about more than probably 2 or 3 people at any given time here. But if it were a more crowded situation, I would plan this differently, but I'm thinking it's not going to be that bad, that crowded. So what I'm planning on doing is having a table set up here in the corner and having things on it. I'll describe what those things are in a bit. And I'm going to be set up personally on a long table that's going to be at standing height. I'll be here and the visitors will be here because I'm going to be showing and hopefully selling fountain pens. So rather than having this be a table I'm sitting behind, and then here I am sitting on my chair, here's my legs, and here's the table, and here's my head, and I'm showing people how to write. And they're standing up, and they're leaning over, and they're writing like this. That doesn't work, because they're sticking their ass halfway into the hallway, and their back is hurting, and it doesn't work. So what I do is I raise my table up so that both me and my customers or my audience are looking eye to eye, for one thing, and it's comfortable for both of us to stand and draw. So this is a table that will be raised up. It's also a table that will be on wheels so that I can easily move it around and get out and interact more closely with some of the visitors, or I can walk over here and explain something or do other stuff. So this is the plan. No one needs to go down this hallway, but if someone has to go down that hallway, people that live down there, for example, I can easily move this out of the way as well. So I have this wall and this wall to place. I've taken some divider screens, hinged divider screens that can be placed up against the wall, and they're filled with, what I've done is make all these little pockets, and I can place drawings into the pockets, and people can look at the drawings I do and select one and bring it over to me and exchange one piece of paper for another piece of paper. They're getting a drawing from me, and I'm getting a engraving of some dead white guy from them on a piece of currency. So that's one of these will be things for sale. The other one might be another divider screen that has images that I create, sample drawings that I've done and jobs I've done for people. I have collages of those all sort of overlapping, and people can see by looking at just this 100 different things I've designed, rather than looking at them in a book where they see only one at a time. That's sometimes valuable, and other times it's nice to see how my artwork relates to other artwork. On this table, which is going to be at chair height, so I may actually have 2 chairs that people can sit at and draw and write with these pens as well. If I've got someone that is trying to decide between 2 pens, maybe I'll say, why don't you sit down over there and go to town. But on this table and on these walls, I will hang pictures on nails that are framed, and I'll also place on this table some things that people can, that are in frames but are tabletop frames. I did a series of portraits using old cardboard photo easels, they're called. They were popular in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and I've created portraits that I've placed in these things. So they fit on your table, and I'm going to have a couple of dozen of those showing, maybe just a dozen, and if anyone sells, I'll replace them with other ones. So that'll be on this table, and or half of that table, or maybe a different table. Maybe I'll have a table over here with that. So what I do when I do set up, I try to plan my setup so that there's traffic flow, so that there's points of interest, so there's sometimes distractions that will keep people at my booth. When I show in my house, I have a Victrola, and I'm playing old music, 100-year-old music on my Victrola, and that's sometimes fun. And this cap doesn't want to sit on there right. And we sing along sometimes when I get a group. Anything that I can do to make people stay and make people smile when they're visiting me is good, because when they smile, they spend their money. No, they don't necessarily spend their money, but I want them to smile. My artwork, much of my artwork, is meant to make people smile. It is not meant for people to imagine how screwed up the world is, or society, or it's not about Sturm und Drang. And it's not about light and fluffy either. I don't draw pictures of pretty flowers, but I do try to draw something that makes people smile. So that's important to me. So if I have something, a funny hat I can wear, a funny something else that I can do or wear, I will do it. And smiles are important. But during the day, if I notice something isn't working right, which often is the case, I will move it. Last year at Open Studios, I had a number of things I was showing, and I was in front of a table. I was toward the entrance of the place I was in, and I would say hello to people, and I had some things here that I was selling. But I didn't sell a single one. The next day, I thought, well, why is this? So I moved them over here, and I moved myself over there. I moved both of us further into the room where the light was slightly better, and it's worked out really well, and I'm trying to figure out why that is. Why did it work better that day? Was it that people come into a room, and this is near the entrance again, and maybe they're uncomfortable entering a room? Maybe they have to move into the room and see the space a little bit before they get out their wallet. I don't know what the problem is, but I try to pay attention to what I'm seeing around me and change my behavior or my layout so it works better. And it's not feng shui so much as marketing. I'm changing my store layout so people feel comfortable where they are looking at stuff, and they also can see things easily, where the light is there, and where I can communicate with them. And I don't try to do the hard sell, but I try to engage the visitor, and if I see them looking at something, I'll try to come up with a clever story about it. Usually the story, whether it's clever or not, is true. I'll describe something maybe about the client that was interesting, that relates to the piece, or I might talk about how difficult it was for me to make it work, or how, oftentimes I have clients that, I show them 3 things, and the client picks the least exciting one that I do, and it sort of makes me sad. But now I'm sad. I often will take, even though the client wants this idea and I do that job for them, I will take what I thought was the better idea and run with it and create a sample of what I wished they had asked me to do, rather than what they actually asked me to do. So sometimes I have a little display of, the customer's always right next to the artist is always right, and people can see the difference between the 2 pieces and say, oh my God, why didn't they pick your idea? And I'll say, I don't know. I thought my idea was good. Sometimes my ideas are a little too clever. And cleverness sometimes is not obvious. And if I'm making a map on how to get from point A to point B, even though I'm looking at the clever version of the map, a client might say, well, my great aunt is going to not understand this map. And I'll say to myself, do you really want your great aunt to be at your reception or not? But I don't say that. I say, okay, well, let's make it simpler, and some of the cleverness is removed. We do a clever ectomy, and we take some of that out and we make it more obvious, and so that the great aunt can get there and bring her the gift that she selected for them, which is always some really stupid looking tea cozy or something. You know the kind of aunts these are. Now they could be uncles. I'm not saying that it's aunts that are always, could be your brother or your mother or whatever. But sometimes I'm going to say the word dumbing it down. Dumbing an idea down to the stupidest person that you're inviting to your event isn't really good. Why don't we make it for the highest common denominator and make people work a little bit? So anyway, what am I talking about? I'm talking about my layout. Oh, damn it. So what I do is I try to engage my visitor with something. You don't I see people at open studios when I walk in their studios, and maybe because they know me, they don't smile and look at me and say hello because it's just me, and I'm one of their neighbors and I see them every day, so maybe they don't care. But I have seen some people, even when strangers come in, and they remain seated working on their crossword puzzle, and they might look up through their reading glasses and look at the visitor and go back to their seven letter word to describe the word for kumquat, or whatever the thing is that they're doing, and they don't make eye contact and they don't engage. They just wait for the person to take out their wallet and give them hundreds of dollars for their painting. And that's not good. Bad. That's bad, because the people frown, like, what's wrong with that artist? And they leave unhappy. So engage is important. So stand up straight, see them at eye level, provide something for people to connect with. Another thing I do, a lot of times people come to open studios and they bring their kids with them. Now, I'm not quite like W.C. Fields with respect to children. I don't think that they're horrible, but I do find, the child is not going to pay a couple $100 for a painting. Though I will tell you a story when I'm done with this thought in a second. But what I do is I have a set of building blocks, and they're blocks from the 40s that are funny shapes. They look sort of like this in plan, and what they are, one I think looks like this, or maybe not. What they are blocks that children would put together to make letters. To learn how to make an R, you take these 3 blocks. One of the blocks did look like this, with this straight edge here and a curve, look like that. And that made that part of the R, and it made half of a B and a third of a B. Here's the other third. And I asked people, adults and children, a little sign, what does the 27th letter of the alphabet look like? And adults saw that and had fun with it, but kids, when they were there, they went right over to the table where I had these blocks and they played with the blocks, while their parents, giving their parents time to take out their wallet and give me hundreds of dollars. So provide something that kids can play with or look at while their parents are asking you about designing something for them, or buying a very expensive sculpture, or doing whatever they're doing. Entertain. You have to entertain. Now, one open studio was the very first open studios I did. I had a piece of mine which was a sculpture of a little paint tube, and at the time I was doing 3-dimensional drawings, I called them, and they were made of paper, but they were the size, and they looked like, in this case, a paint tube, though I did other things, hammers, and I did a piano, life-size piano out of paper as well. But there was a paint tube I did. And this little girl, she might have been 10, 11 or 12, something like that, came into my studio. And her parents were still at the studio down the hall. So it was just this little girl and me in my studio. Little girl and I, me, whatever, this child. was in the studio, and she picked up this paint tube and she asked how much it was. And I said, it's $12. And she put it down and ran away. And I thought, oh God, I've scared the poor child. And she ran away to get her allowance money from her mother, from her parents, so she could buy this from me. So kids, no adult got out their wallet. Well, I mean, this child's parent got out their wallet or purse to give her the money. But sometimes a kid, a child, is the one that's going to buy something. So don't dismiss anyone that comes through, because they may be a good client or have a good conversation. They may inspire you. So anyway, back to my plan of how I'm gonna set up, which is what I was gonna do here. So right now, I think that my drawing, my pens, and me will be here. My little table with 2 chairs will be here, and my sample board will be here, and maybe my drawings for sale will be here, because then I can have a little table here below that with other things for sale. And then I'm not blocking the way, and I can stand here and talk about these things, these jobs I've done for other people, and let the buyer rummage through the things that are for sale by themselves without me giving them the hard sell routine. So I think that's the plan. How does that sound to you? I'll let you know if it works. And that question mark, the unknown that's happening right now, will turn into a exclamation point. And this exclamation point will either be, yay, I made lots of money and made lots of clients and it was great, or it'll be, I'm never going to do this again, god damn it, no one did anything. And I always say this, because it's always, working at McDonald's for minimum wage, I'd make more money. I would make more money than the preparations that go into Open Studios and the time and the effort that I put into it. But I'm doing this with the hope that maybe 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, someone who sees this stuff and doesn't do anything remembers me when they're getting married and hires me to do their invitation. So that's the plan, folks. What do you think? Yes? No? Yes. Think positive. Human drama. You can hear that in the background. Bye.